this. You wanna be like this.
All right. Well, it was a big year last year. For those of you who were here at NAB, there was about 50 booths out of 1,200 booths that were representing virtual production. Today, there's over 600 out of 1,500 booths. So it's 1,000% increase from last year, what we're seeing for virtual production. Anywhere you walk around, you can see that's really the major theme here today. And so we're excited to see this industry grow, and we really believe that this is the future of filmmaking. My name is Tim. I'm the CEO of View, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story. But first, just so you all know the vision of our company, we believe in visual storytelling. We think it's the best way to communicate, to be able to take an idea into its visual form and give it to someone else. That's the closest thing to the human experience. And so our vision is content at the speed of thought, that in the future, computers will be so good that our conversations won't just be speech that we're orally saying, but it'll be accompanied with visuals. Zoom calls where you're seeing movies happen to the person next to you. And so I want to tell you a little bit about how this story started. So 15 years ago, I'd started a company called Diamond View, and it was a traditional production company based out of Tampa Bay. We grew that company, and over the years, was able to expand to Atlanta and Miami. And traditional production is a great way to do visual storytelling. But one thing that hit our company hard, like many others, was 2020. This was an eye-opener for us because we had three industries that we were very focused on. One was sports, and during COVID, every arena was shut down. The other was medical. You couldn't get into a hospital unless you had COVID at that time. And the other was tourism, and nobody in the world was flying at that point. So we were essentially pigeonholed into figuring out how can we do video production in a completely different way. And it was transformative because that led us to an exercise to go, well, if we can't travel to the location, could we get the location to travel to us? And we had seen The Mandalorian, we had seen a few things on the internet at that time about virtual production, but really knew nothing. And so our lead genius, Alvin, started with a 10-foot screen downstairs in our studio. And we were shooting product to start with, and we're just so fascinated that what you see is what you get. In real time, the background looked like it was there. And so what started as a 10-foot screen, we then decided to hedge the whole company on. We said, you know what, in 2020, companies who were good companies were going out of business just because of the circumstances. And so we were faced with the fact of, hey, we're not busy. We're going to roll the dice and throw everything we have of investing into this new way of doing it. And we had built our first LED volume. And one thing we found out really quickly with the LED volume is that it's essentially all the technology of a VR headset, but at the scale of an IMAX theater. And so being able to do the real-time tracking really was a convincing way to feel like you were there. And the volumetric lighting got all the real-time reflections you needed. So what used to take 7 to 8 days, if you did it in green screen and were compositing all these scenes, now you could do in 7 to 8 seconds because it's all real time on the stage. And for a lot of the commercials that we do, they're set in several scenes. So another big advantage was, like in this Amazon Logistics commercial, the truck had to go through several different states. And now doing it in virtual production, it stayed right there. We're able to transport it across the world and still be right in the studio. So what we found was, after we built our first studio, we got two types of calls. One was to bring a studio into town. You know, there was production companies that were interested in having this technology available to rent, but more and more we started getting the calls for people to build, for us to build a stage for them. And we decided after about 6 or 7 calls that, you know, this was happening so much that we were going to get into the business of helping build stages. And today we've built 4 studios that we own and operate, but the majority of the studios we build today are for others. And what we found is there's something special about the network effect. When you look at what happens when you're connected to others, the synergy and the collaboration and just the creative ability, it grows not just linear but exponentially. And so this is very similar back to the days in the internet when the idea of connecting computers together was very foreign in the 90s. You had your intranet, but the idea of an expanded internet didn't seem to add a lot of value. Today, we're seeing that in our studio network, the ability to share resources and talent and shoot in whatever is the closest virtual studio to the client has really been a major advantage. And what I'm starting to see now, and this is where I think today and in the future we're going to see the evolution continue, is we've really only gone through the middle stage of virtual production. If you think back to how Netflix transitioned its business model over time, the prevalent way to do video rental in the 90s was brick and mortar. Blockbuster had thousands of stores all over the place, and if you wanted to get a video, that was just the way you did it. You drove to the location. It was a very material process. You went up and down this library of DVDs and VHS, and then you had to go home, watch it, and bring it back. They changed that because when they opened up their network, Netflix was originally DVD by mail, and they were able to centralize it and be able to distribute the videos directly to the home. But the challenge with this process is it was still quite analog. So you have the digital delivery, but it's still going by a mail truck. It's still hitting the home in a physical form. So what happened was they went to a fully digital process where you can have an entire library of all the media you could ask for in your home. You pay for it digitally, it delivers digitally, you watch it digitally. And this is where we think virtual studio is going. That what used to be a very physical process going to a studio and then a connected process where stages are connected together, we believe it's going to completely virtualize. That all of the technology you see here today will be in virtual form. And so I want to show you a little bit of what that could look like. When the iPhone first came out, the concept of apps, having these micro applications on a mobile device was fabulous because you could decide, how this operating system worked for you. But the revolutionary thing was when they began to build an orchestrator on top of that. So now you could just ask Siri to open an app, and you could even do that while an app is open. And what I think is going to happen with all the generative AI that we're seeing now is you have hundreds of new models coming out that can take text prompts, turn them into image, take image prompts, turn them into video, but there's very low level of orchestration. So we're like the early days of the iPhone now, where there's all of these things you can do, but they're very independent. There's no streamlined workflow. Now, anyone who's done virtual production for a long time has realized there's a dirty secret that nobody's telling, and that is that it's very fast to do virtual production once you've taken a long time to make something. And so being able to take templates and assets and 3D things that are in the marketplace is great. That's a good start. But really where AI, I think, is going to be transformative in the industry is how quick we can create assets in the future. And that's important for virtual production because the ability to have a stage that is quick in production, but even quicker in pre-production, is going to get so much more adoption. Particularly for those who don't have a talent in CG or 3D backgrounds. And so as we look at how this platform exists, we think there's an orchestration layer on top that has an application layer that's agnostic in the middle. So whether this is, you're running it on a game engine inside or you're running it on a Zoom call, any of that you could generatively bring AI to it. So I'll show you a quick sample. And this is a software program that if you sign up today, we're giving this out for free. It's called SceneForge. It's a pre-visualization tool. But what you'll see is if we go inside of the camera here, we can select an area where we generatively create an asset. But that asset isn't created in that application. That's what's interesting. So being able to prompt here through ChatGPT and then send it directly into the application in a 2.5D mesh here. This is really where we see content going in the future, that the artist in 2 or 3 years will be driven more by creativity than technical skill. And this is going to lower the barrier to entry. You can see this across any kind of technical form. When photography was film-based, there were only a few thousand people that could participate in that. You had to know a lot about exposing film to be in film photography. When it went digital and everyone got a camera on their phone, we saw the participation of photography go hundreds of thousands times what it was. Now hundreds of millions of people participate in that. What you're seeing here is that that area in which we were looking at a scene and generatively put something in it was just a piece of a larger world. And as we talk about how will we co-create in virtual environments, this gives a good idea of how someone could be in one sandbox and another can be in another sandbox, but together they could collectively be in a similar location. So I'll leave you with this because we're going to open up to a quick question and answer here. But there's a lot of ideas around AI right now that are floating around. You'll hear different perspectives. I tend to be an optimist in this because I find that technology is the democratizing factor as we move forward in society. I mean, think about this today. The richest billionaires in the world are using the same phone that the average person does. The executives of the biggest companies in the world use the same laptops as the average college student. The websites that you go to that give you the most value are absolutely free. And so as we look at where is technology going to take us in the future, I really believe that technology gives power to the underdogs. And tomorrow, the ability to be an artist, to participate in the creative world, that's going to be closer to anyone than it's ever been before. And so our goal as a company is really to create this world where you can have content at the speed of thought, that there is no mutually exclusive difference between the ideas you have and your ability to share them in real time with others. So I'll end with that, and I'll take any questions after this. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yep.
There's a, say Santa Fe, New Mexico view, and then there's one in Tampa. Are you gonna be able to tie those two together to do one production at the same time? So it's almost like you're throwing from one station to the next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, our view on production is that it's not location-based or dependent, that if you needed an actor in one stage and then the other person can travel, they went to another stage, that you could simultaneously show both backgrounds and co-create together. And we think, too, that that's not just for two actors. That could be for several different things. A lot of times, products get made in a factory that never see the outside world. You have to take that, scan it, shoot it, and then be able to interact with an actor or a scene. That ability to make those prototype marketing right before it goes to market is another thing that we've seen there's a lot of value in. You'll follow?
Yeah, follow. Is this going to be mobile? Like they have a school down in West Palm Beach called G-Star High School. It's got one of the biggest sound sets. I mean, it's incredible. Greg Hopner runs it. But are these sets going to be eventually be able to, you can transport it to somewhere to set it up?
Yeah, so the question is, will these be mobile? I'll tell you, right over here, Magic Box, they got 2 mobile volumes that they're taking around. Go check them out. They're an amazing company. And I do see this is more and more mobile. I'll give you a quick illustration of what we've seen in the market. So we've done last year's about 250 productions across our partner network. It was closer to 500. Of those, we've seen that in the sports arena, almost 90% are on location. So the high-end athletes don't want to leave the arena, and they want the volume to come to them. And so we are seeing that mobile virtual production has increased significantly, and that across at least the productions we do in the commercial work, that is probably the highest growing area we've seen. Yeah, big opportunity there. Right here up front.
Can you just give us a little overview on your thoughts on the economics of this? I mean, the technology is fascinating. It's changing rapidly, but there's also the technology and the capital investments are a big question mark. You've got pitch resolution changes. You've got processor changes. So, what are your thoughts on the time required to pay it off before it is obsolete and you've got to go into the next gen? That's just been a problem in other technologies where very, very high capital, but is 6 months later, is your stage now obsolete or is it 18 months? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a good question because it's a dangerous balance on this. You know, the pioneers end up with arrows in their back because they went first, right? And so anyone who's an early adopter in technology, one, you may pay too much. Two, you maybe stumble and fall along the way. But three, you start to accumulate something that's called the Matthew effect. And the Matthew effect is essentially from this verse in the Bible. It says, "To whom much is given, more shall be given, and to whom has little, even what little they have shall be taken away." It's cumulative advantage that the earlier you get into understanding and learning a new technology, then the more that you can compound that. This is a portfolio-based industry. And so the early adopters in virtual production that have been able to compound, I found that take the risk on the technology costs. I mean, do that sparingly. I'm not saying go make a $20 million stage. If you can make it for $1 million, that's what I would say, because you're getting above the technology curve. But that we're at a point now that LED isn't going to make exponential growth. If you look at where LED was 10 years ago, we're dynamically different. This is a completely different technology. It's from the ability to pack driver ICs on the back of the SMDs, but the idea that we're going to continue to make that smaller and smaller is not going to change our costs over time significantly. So I think we're at a point now that if you're looking at investing, the upside is that you're going to get further ahead in the industry because you'll have the advantage of experience. But the downside is you lose a little bit because the cost now is a little bit higher than it's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. So it's just an upside downside of when you want to get in. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And stick around for some more panels to come.